The sky, a vast and seemingly endless expanse, has long been a symbol of freedom and human ambition. For centuries we have looked up, dreaming of flight, and in the last century we have conquered it. Aviation has connected our world in ways previously unimaginable, shrinking vast oceans and continents into mere hours of travel. It is a testament to human ingenuity and our relentless pursuit of progress. But this marvel of engineering, this delicate dance with the forces of nature, is not without its perils. The history of flight is, in part, written by moments of profound tragedy, moments when the complex systems we rely on failed with devastating consequences. In this journey, we will look back at some of the most tragic moments in aviation history. We will explore the deadliest plane crashes ever recorded, not for morbid curiosity, but with a deep sense of respect and a desire to understand. Each of these events represents a catastrophic loss of life, a collection of stories cut short, and families forever changed. They are stark reminders of the immense responsibility that comes with mastering the skies. By examining these disasters, we can appreciate the fragility of life and the incredible forces at play thousands of feet above the ground. It is through understanding these past failures that we have built the remarkably safe aviation system we have today. Every investigation, every black box recovered, every difficult lesson learned has contributed to a legacy of safety. These stories are not just tales of disaster, they are crucial chapters in the ongoing story of making air travel safer for everyone. So, with a heavy heart and a commitment to remembrance, we will now explore the events that have shaped the very foundations of modern aviation safety, ensuring that the sacrifices made were not in vain. Our journey begins on the 27th of March 1977, on the Spanish island of Tenerife. A series of unfortunate events, beginning with a terrorist incident at a nearby airport, had diverted numerous large aircraft to the much smaller Los Rodeos airport. The airfield was congested, its taxiways crowded with giants of the sky. A thick, rolling fog descended upon the runway, reducing visibility to a matter of meters. It was within this disorienting white veil that two fully laden Boeing 747s, one belonging to KLM and the other to Pan Am, found themselves on a collision course, a situation born from a fatal chain of miscommunication. The KLM flight, its captain anxious to depart, began its takeoff roll without definitive clearance from air traffic control. The Pan Am jet, still taxiing on the very same runway, was obscured by the dense fog. Frantic radio transmissions were garbled by simultaneous broadcasts, the final, desperate warnings lost to static. In an instant, the two colossal machines collided in a cataclysmic explosion of fuel and metal. The resulting inferno claimed the lives of 583 people, marking it as the deadliest accident in the entire history of aviation. It was a tragedy forged not by mechanical failure, but by human error, language barriers, and the immense pressure of a chaotic situation. On August 12, 1985, a date now etched into the memory of Japan, Japan Airlines Flight 123 departed from Tokyo's Haneda Airport. It was a domestic flight filled with passengers heading home for the Obon holiday. Just 12 minutes after takeoff, a deafening boom reverberated through the cabin. The aircraft had suffered a catastrophic structural failure. The rear pressure bulkhead had ruptured, tearing off a large portion of the plane's tail fin and severing all 4 hydraulic lines. For 32 harrowing minutes they fought for control of an aircraft that had lost its rudder, its elevators, its very ability to be steered. Using only the differential thrust of the engines, they battled the wild, uncontrollable oscillations. But their heroic efforts were ultimately in vain. The aircraft crashed into the remote mountains of Gunma Prefecture. With 520 fatalities, it remains the deadliest single aircraft accident the world has ever known. The skies over the village of Charki Dadri, near New Delhi, India, were clear on the evening of November 12, 1996. 2 aircraft were on converging paths. One was Saudi Arabian Airlines Flight 763, a Boeing 747 that had just departed from Delhi. The other was Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907, an Ilyushin Il-76 cargo plane on its descent into the same airport. In the vastness of the sky, they should have passed each other with miles to spare. However, a fatal combination of factors was aligning to create a disaster of unimaginable scale in the air. The Kazakhstan Airlines crew, with limited English proficiency, struggled to correctly interpret the instructions from air traffic control. They descended below their assigned altitude, placing their aircraft directly in the path of the ascending Saudi 747. Without the advanced traffic collision avoidance systems, or TCAS, that are now standard on most commercial aircraft, the two crews were flying blind to the impending danger. The collision was catastrophic. The tail of the Ilyushin sliced through the wing of the 747, and both aircraft disintegrated in the air, raining debris over the fields below. All 349 people on board both flights were killed, making it the world's deadliest mid-air collision and a powerful catalyst for the mandatory implementation of improved collision avoidance technology worldwide. It was the 3rd of March, 1974. Turkish Airlines Flight 981, a McDonnell Douglas DC-10, departed from Orly Airport in Paris, bound for London. The flight was unusually full, a consequence of a strike by British European Airways staff. Shortly after takeoff, as the aircraft climbed over the forest of Ermenonville, the pilots experienced a sudden violent event. A loud bang was followed by the floor of the cabin collapsing, severing critical flight control cables that ran beneath it. The aircraft immediately pitched into a steep, uncontrollable dive. The cause was a latent, known design flaw in the DC-10's cargo door. The locking mechanism was not robust enough to withstand the immense pressure differential at high altitude. The rear cargo door had blown out, leading to an explosive decompression that crippled the aircraft in an instant. The pilots were left powerless, wrestling with a machine that no longer responded to their commands. Just 77 seconds after the door failed, the plane impacted the forest at a speed of nearly 800 kilometers per hour, disintegrating completely. All 346 people on board perished. The disaster exposed a shocking failure to act on previous warnings about the door's design, leading to a complete redesign and one of the largest airworthiness directives ever issued by the FAA. We return to the tragic events of November 12, 1996 over Charkhi Dadri, India, to examine the collision in greater detail. The incident involved two distinct carriers from different corners of the world, brought together by fate over a foreign land. Saudi Arabian Airlines Flight 763 was a modern Boeing 747, the flagship of the fleet, carrying 312 people, many of whom were Indian nationals heading to Saudi Arabia for work. The aircraft was equipped with the standard technology of its time, its crew experienced, and following their flight plan, as instructed by air traffic control in Delhi. Its counterpart in this disaster was Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907, a Soviet-era Ilyushin Il-76. On board were 37 people. This aircraft was a product of a different design philosophy and operated under different standards. Critically, it lacked the altitude reporting equipment common in Western aircraft, and its crew's communication with the English-speaking controllers was fraught with difficulty. The instruction was to descend to 15,000 feet, but the Kazakh crew continued their descent to 14,500 feet, and then further still. This 1,000-foot deviation, a result of misunderstanding, placed them directly in the path of the climbing 747, sealing the fate of all 349 souls aboard the two jets. On a clear afternoon, May 25, 1979, American Airlines Flight 191 prepared for takeoff from Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. It was the start of a Memorial Day weekend, and the DC-10 was fully loaded with 271 passengers and crew, bound for Los Angeles. As the aircraft accelerated down the runway, just before it lifted into the air, a horrifying event occurred. The entire left engine, along with its pylon assembly, ripped away from the wing, vaulting up and over the top, before crashing back down onto the runway. The separation of the engine had severed hydraulic lines, causing the leading-edge slats on the left wing to retract. This created a profound aerodynamic imbalance. The left wing, now without its engine and with its slats retracted, stalled, while the right wing continued to produce lift. This asymmetry caused the massive aircraft to bank sharply and uncontrollably to the left. Despite the pilot's desperate efforts to level the wings, the plane rolled beyond 90 degrees, its nose pointing towards the ground. It crashed into a field and mobile home park just seconds later, killing all 271 on board and 2 people on the ground. The investigation later revealed that improper maintenance procedures had created a tiny crack in the pylon, a fatal flaw that led to the deadliest aviation accident in United States history. On the 23rd of June, 1985, Air India Flight 182, a Boeing 747 named Emperor Kanishka, was flying high over the Atlantic Ocean. It was en route from Montreal to London, carrying 329 people, many of them Canadian citizens of Indian origin, including families with children. At 31,000 feet, while in Irish airspace the aircraft suddenly vanished from radar screens. There was no distress call, no warning. The plane simply disappeared. The subsequent search and recovery operation found wreckage scattered across a vast area of the ocean, pointing to a catastrophic event in mid-air. The investigation that followed would become one of the most complex and lengthy in aviation history. It was soon determined that the aircraft had not suffered a mechanical failure, but was brought down by an act of terrorism. A bomb, hidden inside a piece of luggage and loaded onto the plane in Canada, had detonated in the forward cargo hold. The explosion caused a rapid, catastrophic decompression that destroyed the aircraft in seconds. The bombing was traced to Sikh extremists based in Canada, a tragic act of political violence. It remains the deadliest terrorist attack in Canadian history and was, at the time, the single deadliest act of aviation terrorism the world had seen. The night of December 21, 1988, was cold and dark over the quiet Scottish town of Lockerbie. Above, Pan Am Flight 103, a Boeing 747 named Clipper Mate of the Seas, was cruising at 31,000 feet on its journey from London to New York. The cabin was filled with passengers heading home for Christmas. At 7:02 p.m., a small, sophisticated bomb, concealed within a cassette player in a checked suitcase, detonated in the forward cargo hold. The explosive force was immense, instantly ripping a large hole in the fuselage. The aircraft, mortally wounded, disintegrated within seconds due to the extreme aerodynamic forces. The main fuselage, containing the wings and fuel, plummeted to the earth, striking a residential area of Lockerbie in a massive, fiery explosion that registered on geological sensors. The cockpit section and other debris rained down over a vast swath of the Scottish countryside. All 259 people on board the aircraft were killed, along with 11 residents of Lockerbie on the ground. The deliberate and malicious act of terror sent shockwaves around the globe, leading to a sprawling international investigation that eventually implicated Libyan intelligence agents and forever changed airport security protocols. Perhaps the most profound aviation mystery of our time began on March 8, 2014. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, a modern Boeing 777 with 239 people on board, departed from Kuala Lumpur, bound for Beijing. The flight began uneventfully. Less than an hour after takeoff, as the plane was passing from Malaysian to Vietnamese airspace, its transponder was switched off, and it vanished from civilian radar. The final verbal communication from the cockpit was a calm "Goodnight Malaysian 370. After that, silence. What followed was not the discovery of wreckage, but a trail of electronic ghosts. Military radar tracked the aircraft making a sharp turn back across the Malay Peninsula, deviating completely from its intended flight path. Then, for nearly 7 more hours, the aircraft's satellite data unit sent a series of automated pings that were received by a satellite over the Indian Ocean. These pings allowed investigators to trace a series of vast arcs where the plane might have been, but they could not pinpoint its final location. Despite the most extensive and expensive search in aviation history, covering millions of square kilometers of remote ocean, the main wreckage of Flight 370 has never been found. The fate of the 239 souls on board remains a heartbreaking and deeply unsettling mystery. The Persian Gulf in 1988 was a region of high tension. The Iran-Iraq War was raging, and U.S. Navy warships patrolled the strategic Strait of Hormuz. On July 3, 1988, Iran Air Flight 655, an Airbus A300, took off from Bandar Abbas on a routine short-haul flight to Dubai. It was flying within a recognized international air corridor. On the waters below, the U.S. Navy-guided missile cruiser USS Vincennes was engaged in a skirmish with Iranian gunboats. The ship's advanced Aegis combat system detected an aircraft taking off from the same airfield used by Iranian military jets. In the tense and chaotic environment of the ship's Combat Information Center, a series of tragic errors in identification occurred. The crew of the Vincennes incorrectly identified the civilian airliner as an attacking Iranian F-14 fighter jet that was descending towards them. Believing their ship was in imminent danger, the captain gave the order to fire. 2 surface-to-air missiles were launched, striking the Airbus and destroying it instantly. All 290 people on board, including 66 children, were killed. The event was a catastrophic case of mistaken identity, a tragedy born from the fog of war and the fallibility of even the most advanced technology when placed under extreme human pressure. We have journeyed through some of the darkest moments in the history of flight. Each story is a universe of loss, a stark reminder of the lives cut short and the families left to grieve. From the foggy runway at Tenerife to the mysterious expanse of the Indian Ocean, these events underscore the unforgiving nature of aviation, where the smallest error, a single flawed component, or a moment of misjudgment can lead to catastrophe. It is vital that we do not look away from these tragedies, but rather, we must face them with solemn respect for those who were lost. Their stories are not just statistics in a grim ledger, they represent the human cost of our ambition to conquer the skies. The legacy of these disasters, however, is not solely one of sorrow, it is also a legacy of profound and lasting change. The fires of Charqui Dadri and Tenerife forged new international rules for communication and collision avoidance. The structural failure of Flight 123 led to revolutionary improvements in aircraft maintenance and inspection. The malicious acts that brought down Pan Am 103 and Air India 182 gave birth to the security systems that protect us all today. Out of every single one of these terrible events, crucial lessons were learned. Lessons that have been meticulously integrated into the design, operation, and regulation of modern aircraft. As we conclude, let us hold a moment of silence in our hearts for the thousands of victims. Their unwilling sacrifice has paved the way for the incredible safety of modern air travel, where millions of people fly every single day without incident. This remarkable record is the direct result of learning from the past. By remembering these events and honoring the lives lost, we ensure their legacy continues to protect future generations of travelers, making the skies a safer place for all who journey through them.